Welcome to Change Management. Change is an inevitable part of life. Everything undergoes change. Man, monkey, machine are all subject to change. Change is a natural process set in motion by various factors, like the passing of time, growth and regression, prosperity and poverty, paucity and plenty. Change can be defined as movement from one state to the other. Resisting change is like resisting a tidal wave. It will sweep you away before you know it. It is much better to surf the wave and emerge on top. Learning how to manage change is crucial for happiness and success, both in private and professional life. In corporate environments, change occurs every day in small ways and frequently in big ways. Sudden merger, surprise salary cut, change is always a challenge. Business today is fast-moving, with constantly altering paradigms. It's all in flux, whether management style or market condition. Example: an interest rate cut in faraway United States of America can affect the viability of a business in Tokyo, Japan. The best way to cope with change is to throw words like unexpected and surprise out of the dictionary. Exact predictions are difficult, but a general readiness and management plan is essential. Corporate entities which manage change effectively are more successful in every respect than those which are overtaken unprepared by change. Having a change management strategy ready can help management keep productivity levels high, get results quickly, cut expenditure, reduce delays in projects, avoid major staff disruptions, implement changes smoothly, steady the boat instead of rocking it. Let us look at two companies which tackle change differently and see where they ended up. Both aim to use the internet for e-commerce. Both began well, with an infusion of venture capital that should have held them in good stead for several years. Changwo Enterprises invested the venture capital in safe stocks and used only the interest for expanding its business, while Kaisha Corporation went on a spending spree, using the money faster than it came in. The world business scenario changed, and the second expected infusion of venture capital did not materialize for either company. Kaisha Corporation, which had no plan ready for this scenario, had to close down, resulting in loss of jobs to scores of employees, a list of angry creditors, and bankruptcy for its major stakeholders. Changwo Enterprises, which had planned for a scenario, as Changwo Enterprises had a good change management plan, the resultant new entity was stronger than both the original ones. The e-commerce business succeeded, while so many others failed. The lessons that we glean from this scenario are: companies have to be ever prepared for change. Well-prepared companies will survive change and even do better. Ill-prepared companies might have to close down or face other distressing situations. Being prepared means having a good change management plan ready, which can be adapted to suit the type of change. In addition, it is important to state in the beginning that there is really nothing called good change or bad change. Perception of change as natural, positive, and continuous will keep corporate bodies dynamic and energetic. Change is exhilarating. Managing change is an exciting activity that allows the use of innovative ideas and modern management techniques. In this program, we will go into all important aspects of change management. We will first ask ourselves why change and look at some common triggers of change. These causes or triggers lead us to the second learning point, which is types or categories of change. These categories are important as they will determine how change is tackled. The program will then take a look at how to plan or design change. This planning has to cover all levels of the company, right from the Chief Executive Officer to the lower level staff. It might also involve bringing in expert consultants from outside. What can be achieved without proper communication? Not communicating the anticipated change properly can have adverse consequences, including resistance from employees. Effective strategies to communicate change are a core part of any change management plan. In this program, you will learn the latest communication strategies, which use both person-to-person communication and technology aids for success. Then we will proceed to the subject of managing change, dealing with this complex issue in a simple manner, with examples, case studies, and illustrations to make absorption easier. Managing change will cover implementation of the design or plan for change. According to the type of change, the need to click on Why Change to start the program. Asking why change takes us to the numerous situations that spark change. These triggers can be internal or external factors. Before describing these triggers in detail, let us first understand that change can be small or big. In this program, we are primarily concerned with big change or organization-wide change. Small change, which does not affect the organization in a major way, can be illustrated by in-house reallocation of responsibilities, alteration in work timings and holidays, or minor variations in the way a pay package is aligned. This type of change will not usually be resisted by employees as long as it does not affect them negatively. They are fairly easy to handle. If certain allowances which were exempt from tax are brought under the tax net by new legislation, the company increases the overall package for the employee to compensate the loss due to taxation. Big change covers the entire organization and will cause a shake-up that can even alter the whole nature of the company. To reiterate, major change can be sparked either by internal or external factors. Some examples of organization-wide internal changes are change of CEO or supervising officer, change of goal or mission, re-engineering, restructuring, introducing concepts like total quality management or enterprises resources programming, introduction of new technology, executive development, training programs, right sizing, upward or downward wage revision. Let us now look at each of these triggers in some detail. Chief Executive Officers or CEOs are usually people with very clear-cut ideas on which direction companies are to progress. A new CEO, whether picked from within the company or recruited from outside, signals the need for change through the organization. There will be new action plans, new priority areas, fresh deadlines, and some reshuffle of personnel. CEOs are people in a hurry and will want everyone to keep pace. A wake-up call, in other words. The legendary illustration of the man who took over as CEO. Companies can change the goals or missions with which they were originally established for many reasons. This might be because new business environments might make the original mission obsolete. The initial goal is not giving results as promised. New opportunities have presented themselves. A visionary who runs a research and development business process re-engineering or BPR involves a complete revamping of the ways a company does things. In its most advanced form, it discards the current methods in toto and replaces them with new work practices. In a milder form, it evaluates current processes, keeps those which are good, and changes those which have proved unsuccessful. A hotel chain did away with maintaining manual registers in individual hotels. Unlike BPR, restructuring does not require drastic alteration of processes. It is more a matter of form rather than content. The aim of restructuring is usually very specific and directed either at particular areas of a company or the entire company. Restructuring involves changing frameworks in which processes are carried out. A multinational dealing in introducing concepts like total quality management (TQM) and enterprises resources programming (ERP) initiate vital changes that companies have to go in for to stay in the race. TQM is a method by which the contribution of each process to the whole is assessed, and best practices are introduced and monitored. ERP is a process which uses information technology to monitor quality systems from start to finish. Manufacturers of packed potato chips conduct quality. Companies have to constantly upgrade the technology they use to achieve greater productivity. This might be a minor change like introducing voicemail in place of telephone operators, or a major change like automating your entire production cycle. Introduction of battery-operated trucks in airline terminals instead of hand-pulled luggage trolleys. Executive development programs are aimed at identifying potential leaders and separating them from those whose skill sets or traits make them followers. These leaders will be those selected by top management to learn about impending change, communicate it to others, and spearhead implementation. In a large car manufacturing company, a supervisor was picked to lead the change over to just-in-time technology, as she had displayed the ability to absorb new ideas quickly and with open-mindedness. No change can be implemented without training of all staff, whether they are at managerial level or subordinate level. Training should be an ongoing process and not begun and carried out in a hurry just before major changes are effected. Equipment by going in for computer-controlled cranes. The cranes were ordered and arrived. Increasing or decreasing the number of employees is a major change. If staff size is going up, there will automatically be changes in job allocations, number of groups, and space availability. Existing staff will have to be made comfortable with the change, otherwise it will be resisted. Resistance will be even more acute if the company is going in for downsizing. Cutting staff is not an attractive proposition for anyone, and unless there is a serious situation demanding this change, it is better to seriously consider other alternatives. Recession trends in many parts of the world are tackling pay revisions poses somewhat of a similar challenge. Everyone welcomes it when salaries go up, but few people are willing to accept it when there is a pay cut. Wage revisions are triggers of major change since they impact the living conditions and well-being of staff directly. Others. When a wage board set down pay scales, those in the former category had to actually return money to the. Let us now proceed to external triggers. Mergers and acquisitions, divestiture, new management, dissolution, liberalization and globalization, collaborations, funding increases or cuts, new markets, cost combat imperatives, and competition. Mergers and acquisitions. When two companies merge or one company is taken over by another, major change is inevitable. There will be alteration in balance of power. Visions and priorities will differ. Both parties have to plan a change management strategy that will not disrupt but lead to smooth transition. This becomes tougher when one company has been forced to change because of adversity. In the merger between Changwo and Ganapati Global, one an e-commerce venture and the other a financial major which wanted to use each other inquiries as it had eroded its net worth totally. Sometimes mergers make the new company stronger than the sum of its parts. The merger of two pharmaceutical giants, each with different strengths, and their consolidated grip over different market segments and different technology bases, saw the emergence of a powerful new company with the plus factors doubling. In contrast, an ailing steel plant was taken. Divestiture, which involves the sale of holdings, is often a decision taken by a few of the major shareholders in a company for different reasons. It often goes with great care and tact. Employees strongly resisted the divestiture by a government of its majority holdings in a company, in the fear that the new management would send home a substantial number of staff, cut down staff benefits, and make service conditions stringent. CEO changes can sometimes be so sudden that the new boss has to walk into the office one fine day and introduce himself to the staff. It is a moot point whether new management is more traumatic for the manager or for the employees. The best way to meet this type of change on both sides is to accept it and make the. A tea manufacturing company was flagging. No change is more traumatic than a company being dissolved. This results in loss of jobs, and unless the top management plans the dissolution package properly, a large number of workers from dissolved SIG textile mills were rehabilitated by employing them in mills owned by the government. However, liberalization and globalization bring in their wake greater opportunities for businesses. They facilitate increased activity and also provide access to global markets. But it is also true that they also remove protections and expose companies to international competition. The liberalization and globalization of the automobile industry in India saw the position of indigenous car manufacturers being undermined by the new international players. Technological obsolescence dictates the need for newer technology all the time. New technology requires infusion of funds and know-how. This is usually achieved by collaboration. Collaborations provide a formal framework for sharing technology and funds. A major tea company entered into technical collaboration with a company in another country to obtain know-how on tea bags for instant use, since it foresaw an increasing need for this product. Funding increases and cuts, both bring in changes. While funding increases in the form of increased equity or venture capital infusion can result in sudden expansion of activity in spheres like recruitment and operation, funding cuts due to poor cash flow or less generation of resources can result in closure of unprofitable units, staff cuts, reduction of perks, and so on. All these mean a lot of change. Many dot-com ventures which did not get their second installment of funding had to lay off staff, curtail operations, cut wages for the skeleton staff who were retained, and remove perks. Sudden emergence of new markets results in change in the way the organization has to cater to the needs of that market. This may result in induction of new personnel or putting in place a new assembly line. The market may also bring in a different way of thinking in the organization about overall marketing strategies. An international snack food manufacturer should think of introducing cost combat imperatives. These changes are usually dictated by competitive factors. Since price is an important element in product, is another way of saying that it is internal or external. The 10 triggers of change discussed under internal change in Module 1 would come under the category of change can either encompass the whole company or can be designed to cover only certain sectors. When one company takes over another company and brings in its own top management, the procedures and practices of the new altered the financial management practices totally, as that was its core competence. Where e-commerce was concerned, well-managed companies will be leaders, carrying out change in a proactive manner. This means proactive change. Anticipating environment laws becoming more stringent, car manufacturers in Europe changed over to unleaded fuel. Reactive change. In contrast, buses in Delhi, India had to go off the roads because they did not change over to a new fuel despite court deadlines. The reactive change has led to idling of assets. Change can also be slow or quick. If it is a planned change, railways changed over from one type of couplings between wagons to a superior one in exactly one night, involving over 3,000 freight cars. This change was achieved overnight thanks to planning over 2 years. Whether change is progressive or regressive depends largely on the way a company is managed. In an organization is an instance of progressive change. Giving up computerized systems due to staff resistance is an instance of regressive change. Profound or superficial. This too, to a great degree, depends on the top management and their. Let us now look at a case study where many of these categories of change are illustrated. Click on the visual for details. The news item about Blue Orient Lines acquiring American Professional Lines, names changed, made most people who knew something of international shipping sit up and take notice. What was really remarkable in this acquisition was that a shipping line of a small country, Singapore, was buying out a flagship company of the mighty US. Blue Orient Lines paid around $825 million for the shares of American Professional Lines. The acquisition created a great deal of uncertainty about the future of the employees and stakeholders of both the companies. Both being transnational corporations, the implications of this acquisition were worldwide. Change was in the air. For instance, Robert Kuhn, who was country manager of American Professional. The acquisition of American Professional Lines was the result of a well-thought-out strategy by Blue Orient Lines, which wanted a toehold in the US to make its presence felt in the American continent. American Professional Lines decided. Now let us see what change categories this case study exemplifies. Institution or environmental. This was an institutional change for Blue Orient Lines, but an environmental change for American Professional Lines. It was initially a personnel change for American. Was it reactive or proactive? It was a proactive change. Profound or superficial? It was profound and sweeping for both companies. As a result, let us recap what we have learned in this module. We learned that change categories are closely linked to triggers of change. Click on each for more. If the trigger is internal, the change will be internal or institutional. Change can be related to structure or form of a company. Change can cover the whole company or focus on. It can be set in motion either by the company, proactive. The speed of change should vary according to situations. Change should always aim at progress and improvement. For change to be meaningful, it should permeate the whole company. Surface change will not bring good results. Now let's take a quiz to test our. Click on Designing Change to proceed in the program. Designing change is a crucial component of any change management program. Planning or designing change requires clear idea of the objective of change, setting of realistic goals, inquiry into whether the goal is in keeping with organization fundamentals or departs from them, analysis of the present state of the organization, study of the extent of the process, determination of how long it will take, drawing a roadmap to achievement, involvement of employees in stages, putting in place monitoring mechanisms, and appointing consultants. The first imperative before change is introduced Once objectives are set down, the company should carry out an assessment to see whether these goals are realistic or not. While improving, the company should then inquire into whether these new goals are. Once goals are set, top management should engage in detailed analysis of the present state of the organization. This analysis should cover all areas of the company. It will help determine where change has to be acute, where there is no need for change, where it will be accepted, and where resisted. There should be particular focus on known problem areas. A thorough system study helps an organization to look at. The CEO of the new company ordered a system study of the analysis of present state when set against goals to be achieved enlightens the company on. Similarly, the length of time allocated to implement change is also something. Examination of the 6 factors just listed will help the company draw up what. Once the roadmap is ready, the company has to involve its employees in. The next step in designing change would be to put monitoring mechanisms in place. These companies are tending more and more to employ consultants for their change management programs. The rationale for this is that such consultants are experts in the particular. Let us recap what we learnt in this module. In this module, we looked at what has to be done before actually beginning the task of managing and implementing change. A plan or design is needed for this. Designing change should look into aspects like objective of change, realistic goals, company's basic principles, current state of the organization, extent of change needed, time frame to implement, preparing a map for achievement, telling the staff, mechanisms to monitor change, and hiring consultants. Let's see how well acquainted we've become with designing change. Click on Communicating Change to continue the program. Good communications is a vital part of any management strategy and is particularly important in change management. All of us are fearful of the unknown. We are comfortable in the cocoon of comfort created by current situations and do not want to be disturbed. Talk of change spreads very fast in an office environment. If allowed to take root based on rumor, it causes incredible damage. In any company, there is usually one easily identifiable person who is the strong to the agent of change to have a plan ready to counter intelligent arguments and carry the day. Once the top management is convinced, the next level is to percolate the information down to the C. As we proceed down an organization hierarchy, the need for explanation and expansion becomes higher. The important people in a company are its staff. Unless they cooperate and help in implementation of change, any plan will fail. Staff means large numbers, and large numbers means more opinions, conflicts, and dissonance. But if approached properly, this top management to study the feedback from staff seriously and act on it before implementing change. Once the entire organization has been briefed and any alterations to the changes decided on, the CEO should convene a meeting with everyone present and outline the new vision, mission, and goals. This forum has to be necessarily a lecture or talking format rather than a discussion, as the latter might prove unproductive and have negative results. All decisions have already been made, and it is time for the company to come together and manage change. The mission is now sacred. At each of these levels we have just talked about, the way change is. In other words, the people talking to the staff have to be the people who can highlight the positive aspects. Despite the best communication efforts, the impending change might still not be received well. Some reasons are: asking people to do things differently means a change in habits. This makes people uncomfortable. People can handle only certain levels of change, feel isolated, and therefore resist it. People have no confidence in the person proposing change or are actively opposed to him or her. They sincerely believe that the organization is in need of a different type of change than proposed. Resistance will usually be directly proportional to the length and speed of the learning curve. Factors to be considered while overcoming resistance are: degree of resistance. Is it strong or weak? Extent of resistance. Next, the company should prepare a strategy to overcome resistance. The strategy can be of 4 types, used either separately or together. They are the 4 E's of change. Education. Employees are educated about the need to change and its benefits. Enticement. Employees are offered an attractive package to accept change. The incentives can either be monetary or The famous example of a newspaper magnate who tackled the difficult printers of Fleet Street in London. Apart from these formal strategies, we can keep in mind some general hints which will help us communicate change and overcome resistance. Clearly state the need for change and its goals. This should be done both orally and The ideal objective of communication strategies is to achieve consensus. Consensus means that everyone is on board that the change management strategy will go through. Let us recap what we have learnt in this module. We understood the vital importance of proper communications to manage change programs effectively. Inadequate communication strategies can derail change management programs. Communication should be at different levels. It should start with the person who is initiating change, who has to convince other top management. The top management should then communicate the new goals and plans to senior managers, who will talk to the middle managers. Middle managers have the important role of convincing staff. Overcoming resistance is a part of change management. Various factors relating to resistance, like its cause and extent, have to be analyzed. The 4 E's to combat resistance were introduced. These are education, enticement, empirical, and enforcement. The ultimate aim of communication strategies is to achieve consensus. Let's do this quiz now to reinforce our learning on communicating change. Click on Managing Change to learn about the crux of the program. We are now moving to the core module of this program, that is, Managing Change. But by now, it is clear that all the ideas we have looked at and studied so far, the triggers of change, categories of change, how to design change, and how to communicate it, are themselves integral parts of managing change. Experts categorize change management under general system or just plainly a calculated gamble. Whichever definition we opt for, our aim here is to put together some of the proven techniques to manage change. We will divide this module into 3 main parts: implementation, mid-term review, and assessing impact. Under implementation, we look at the following subheadings: the organization itself, consultants and their role, skills required, and strategy for change. With respect to the organization or company, here are some essentials. Put a group of people with a group head in charge of the plan. This group should be drawn from different departments. This group should coordinate the change management plan. Group members should be picked for their leadership qualities, responsiveness, communication skills, and ability to take people along. Reward those who show active interest and give new ideas. If the company decides to employ a consultant, the factors to be considered are: the consultant has to be picked after careful. Let us now look at the skills an organization has to possess to manage change. These can be divided broadly into human skills, commercial skills, conceptual skills, analytical skills, and technical skills. Click on each for more. Organizations are driven by people. People working on their own and in interaction with one another. Commercial skills or business skills are most crucial to a change management plan. Ideas are everything. Good ideas and concepts are the foundation. The skill to analyze, take a problem apart and then put it together again is the most valuable. The skill to analyze, take a Technical skills are the ability to work with expertise in a particular function. These skills involve dealing with the nitty-gritty of change strategies. If conceptualization is a macro skill, technical or systems management is a micro skill. It deals with procedures, details, small elements. Commercial skills. Ideas are everything. The skill to analyze. Now that we've had a look at the skills needed to implement change, let us move on to strategies, those all-important components of any management plan. There can be different tackling all of it at one go. Change managers in charge of each department or area implement a vertical change management. This strategy revolves around the belief that management is. This, as is obvious, is the opposite of the top-down. A strategy that is a mix of the four listed, horizontal, vertical, top-down, and bottoms-up is perhaps the ideal cocktail. This is a strategy tailored to the individual case, a plan unique to the particular. Once the change management strategy is set in motion, it has to be reviewed and monitored. The midterm review should cover areas like: is the change progressing towards the desired goal? Are the time frames being kept? Has there been any adverse effect like productivity loss or employee attrition? Have any problems been encountered in specific areas? Has anything happened to necessitate a change to the change strategy? This midterm review is best carried out by a team different. Once the change is implemented fully, the impact has to be assessed. After carrying out the assessment, if the change has proved a success, the team in charge. Let us recap what we have learned in this module. In this module, we first learned that managing change actually begins with the first module, Why Change, and covers all the others, namely change categories, designing change, and communicating change. We then went into the specifics such as implementation, midterm review, impact assessment, and rewards for successful change management. Implementation of change covered the organization and what it has to do, the role of consultants, the skills required, and the strategies that can be used. Human skills, commercial skills, conceptual skills, analytical skills, and technical skills were discussed. The strategies suggested were horizontal, vertical, top-down, bottoms-up, and tailored. We arrived at the conclusion that a strategy tailored to the specific change was best among the lot. Now attempt this quiz to test your knowledge. We've come to the end of this program on change management. We hope you found it interesting. Let us briefly go over what we learned in each module. Click on each rung of the ladder in the image to read more. In Module 1, Why Change?, we learned that change is inevitable, that it should be anticipated and managed, not resisted. The triggers of change can be either internal factors in the organization or external conditions outside. Change categories in Module 2 are closely linked to causes of change. Some other types of change are profound or superficial and slow or quick. How to design change. This was the subject of Module 3. Here we looked at objectives, basic principles, current state of the organization, extent of change needed, and time frames. We concluded that a clear roadmap should be drawn up. All of the above will serve no purpose if communicating change is not done properly. In Module 4, we got some insight into how to communicate change and also dealt with the crucial aspect of overcoming resistance. Managing change. That's what the whole program was about. In the 5th and final module, we went into details of how to manage change. We looked at what the organization has to do, the skills it needs, and the various strategies available. We stressed that impact has to be assessed and that successful change managers have to be rewarded. Let's now go for the big one, a quiz that covers all Just for a moment, recall the statement, "Is there need for more change?" when we went through impact assessment. That was not a joke. Companies and managers have to be constantly aware of the need for change. Change is a continuous process and is akin to the wheel of life. We hope we have provided some tips on how to manage change in your organization. Thank you and goodbye.